Welcome to Justice Trek. My name is Ted Kilvington, and this is an audio and video log that journeys through comic book history as I discuss individual comic book stories of Star Trek, the Justice Society, and the world's greatest superheroes, the Justice League of America. Justice Trek is the only show devoted to the entirety of these great comic book series, from the 1940 debut of the JSA, the launch of the JLA and Star Trek comic books in the 1960s, and right up to comics hot off today's shelves. This show will impact you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to Justice Trek. My name is Ted Kilvington, and this is episode 19, where I will be discussing 1978's Justice League of America number 161, the issue where Zatanna the Sorceress joined the team. See, that issue came out in September of 1978, the month I turned 10 years old. Didn't have a very reliable income stream then, so I didn't pick it up at the time. Didn't actually buy it until about 10 years later, by which point I was 20 years old and had a more reliable income stream. But the first time I read that story wasn't in that comic itself. It was when it was printed in 1982 in the Best of DC Digest number 30. In fact, I actually have 2 copies of these. This is the one I bought at the time in 1982. Plus, I received another one as part of a giveaway from the Digest Cast podcast a few years ago. I'm going to be paying it forward with my own contest. For more details, stick around to the end of the episode. So, many other episodes available for your viewing pleasure. 2 episodes ago, episode 17, I covered 1960s The Brave and the Bold, number 29, Challenge of the Weapons Master, with the very second ever appearance of the Justice League of America. Plus there's episode 18, where I covered 1980s Star Trek number 6 from Marvel Comics, The Enterprise Murder Case, a murder mystery written by Mike W. Barr. So I hope you like the shows we're doing. My plan from this point forward is, if I'm covering a Golden Age story, I've already done All-Star Comics number 3, the first appearance of the Justice Society, and so I'll go sequentially from there if I'm doing a Golden Age story. If I'm doing a Silver Age story, I've already covered the first 2 appearances of the JLA, and then I'll just continue sequentially from there. If I'm doing a Bronze Age story, I'm going to start from this era. So I've already covered in past episodes issues 159 and 160. Now we'll be doing 161. So if next time I do a Bronze Age JLA story, it'll be number 162. Plus, in our next episode, we will be doing current comics. So I'll be covering, in our next 2 episodes, 2022 Star Trek number 1 from IDW and 2022's Justice Society of America number 1 from 2022. By DC Comics, of course. So if you like the shows I'm doing, if you like this show, click like. And if you want to make sure that all of my shows show up on your YouTube feed, please click subscribe. The roll call for this issue, in order of appearance: Green Arrow, Oliver Queen; Flash, Barry Allen; Superman, Kal-El, a.k.a. Clark Kent; Green Lantern, Hal Jordan; Hawkman, Katar Hall, a.k.a. Carter Hall; Elongated Man, Ralph Dibny; Red Tornado, John Smith; Aquaman, King Arthur Curry of Atlantis; Batman, Bruce Wayne; Atom, Ray Palmer; Wonder Woman, Princess Diana of Paradise Island, a.k.a. Diana Prince; Black Canary, Dinah Drake Lance; Hawk Girl, Shayera Thal; Zatanna, Zatara; and Zatara, John Zatara. Justice League of America number 161 was published September 14th, 1978, just 2 days after I turned 10, with a 40-cent cover price and a December cover date. The Reverse Spells of Zatanna's Magic Sagum. 22-page story by Gerry Conway, writer, Dick Dillin, pencil artist, Frank McLaughlin, ink artist, Ben Oda, letterer, Adrian Roy, colorist, and Julius Schwartz, editor. The Justice League of America have gathered together in their satellite headquarters 22,300 miles above the Earth and have unanimously voted to induct the superhero sorceress Zatanna as a new member. Immediately, though, Zatanna magically appears in front of them, wearing a new costume, and then Zatanna very rudely refuses to join. She even destroys the ballots themselves with a magical command, "Flames destroy, fire claim, let them not write my name." Many members of the team try to calm her down and find out what has made her so upset. Zatanna, however, does not want their help, especially Green Lantern, and then magically disappears. The members of the League then leave the satellite, except for the Atom, who remains on monitor duty. The Atom recalls the team's history with Zatanna, such as the time Green Lantern aided her fight against the Warlock of Yis, when the Lantern secretly seeps back into the satellite headquarters in misty form. Green Lantern then zaps the Atom with blue lightning, knocking him unconscious, and then looks up some information on the League's computer before flying away. Next, we see Zatanna traveling in northwest France at the ruins of the legendary drowned land of Yis. Zatanna uses a magic spell to move from Earth to the current magical land of Yis, and when she arrives, she encounters the local trolls. Zatanna is determined to make her way to a nearby castle and rescue a prisoner, but eventually the trolls are able to capture her. We then see that the prisoner in the castle is Green Lantern. Meanwhile, in a mansion on the outskirts of Gotham City, Batman talks to the retired magician John Zatanna, the father of Zatanna, seeking an explanation for her unexpected reaction. Zatanna assures Batman that his daughter would love to join the Justice League. Batman then deduces that Zatanna said the opposite of what she really meant, and he then remembers that Zatanna's magic spells must be spoken backwards, and she used a forward-spoken spell on the JLA satellite. Batman then calls another Justice League meeting, and then he, Green Arrow, Red Tornado, and Black Canary go to the team headquarters, where they find and revive the unconscious Atom. Batman then deduces that the Green Lantern that attacked Atom was an imposter, and then notes that the JLA's computer has tracked the imposter's flight to Angkor Wat in the country of Cambodia. The five heroes travel to Angkor Wat and engage the fake Green Lantern, but he proves more powerful than they expected. In Yis, Zatanna is rescued from the trolls by a group of locals who remember her from the time she saved them with Green Lantern years before. Zatanna then knocks down the castle and awakens the real Green Lantern from a magical trance. In Angkor Wat, the imposter Green Lantern transforms himself back into his real form, that of the Warlock of Yis. The Warlock then talks out loud about his plan for revenge against Zatanna and Green Lantern, when all of a sudden the two heroes arrive from Yis and easily knock the Warlock unconscious. Later, back on the satellite, Zatanna explains that she was under a spell by the Warlock not to reveal his plan, which is why she acted so out of character, hoping the JLA would then investigate her actions. Zatanna then agrees to accept the team's offer of membership and formally joins the Justice League of America. All right, so that's what happened in the issue. I'm going to do the credits now. For those of you new, I like to do the credits in the middle of the show. That way people actually sit through them. I'm going to switch the camera and you'll see what happens next. But please stick around. It'll be good. And if you like it enough to stick around, please click like. Please click subscribe. See you in a minute. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to send them to me on Twitter under the handle @JusticeTrek or via email at thejusticetrek@gmail.com. Be sure to include the word "the" at the beginning of the email address. For research purposes, I rely heavily on dc.fandom.com, memory-alpha.fandom.com, comicvine.gamespot.com, the Grand Comics Database at comics.org, and Mike Boyle's website, Mike's Amazing World of DC Comics at dcindexes.com. The opinions expressed are solely those of the host and any participants. This podcast is not a commercial enterprise and does not make any money. All copyrights are held by their respective owners. The opening sequence was animated by Craig Smith of Phoenix Studios. The opening music is Dragon Slayer by the Makai Symphony. All music used is either public domain and/or not protected by copyright. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. The cover pencil art was by Rich Buckler, and the cover ink art was by Frank McLaughlin. The cover is a great representation of the story, and I really like the scowl on Zatanna's face. It really sells the mood. Here's my analysis of the story. Now, first, I want to point out that Superman did appear briefly in this story, but he did appear. Because DC Comics was trying to boost Superman's profile at this time, this was the fall of 1978, just a couple months before Superman the movie was going to be released. So to boost his profile, Superman appeared in every issue of JLA, from 1976's JLA number 137 all the way through 1981's number 191. JLA number 137, you may recall, was this one that I covered in the very first episode of Justice Trek. The Phantom Stranger was not in this issue. Now, he sort of joined the Justice League in issue 103. While the heroes voted him in, he never actually accepted or declined, and he did not take a signal device. That's my kitten, folks. She likes to get my attention. She gets plenty of attention from me, and she's going to try throughout the show. You can't sit on my lap. I specifically put the table in front of my lap so you wouldn't get there. You can get plenty of lap time later on. Kittens. So the Phantom Stranger did show up whenever the Justice League needed him, and he could sense when they did, and he could appear no matter where they needed him, whether it was aboard the satellite or in any continent on Earth. In fact, they usually would need him against magical menaces. But the Justice League, with the introduction of Zatanna, now had a full-time sorceress on the team. So apparently, the Phantom Stranger felt that the League now no longer needed his assistance. He would appear once more in JLA, the original run, in 1981's issue number 200. But otherwise, the Phantom Stranger would not appear again in a Justice League comic until 1998. That was JLA in Crisis Secret Files number 1, which tied into that year's big crossover, the DC 1 million. Now, in 1978, DC Comics had begun a big publishing initiative called the DC Explosion. They've been promoting it for months, and the idea is they were going to expand their page count and expand their number of comics they published, and introduce a lot more characters and a lot more features, and it would just be a whole new raft of uh, stories and characters and ideas and comics for the readers to enjoy. The DC Explosion formally kicked in June 1978, and it was a big success for 2 weeks. And then Warner Brothers, the corporate owners of DC Comics, decided that due to recessionary conditions, all of their subsidiaries, DC included, would have to drastically cut back on their operations. So most of the new comics that were launched as part of the DC Explosion had to be canceled. Some at least got one issue. Some didn't even get that. And many of the comics that they had prepared, they'd already written, drawn, they were paid for, and DC would try and find some, as another cost-using method for the comics that didn't get canceled. DC would try to use that material that already was purchased and completed to fill out their the publishing line for the next few months. Now, DC Comics prior to the explosion were 35 cents for a 32-page comic with 17 pages of story and art. Then when they expanded as part of the explosion, they became 50 cents for 40 pages with 25 pages of story and art. And then because of the contraction beginning in September of 78, the standard size of DC Comics went back to 32 pages, and the standard page count went down to 17, and the price decreased from 50 to 40 cents. Now, because some of those comic stories that were already prepared during the DC Explosion were longer than 17 pages, DC would allow the longer stories to still see print. Basically, they had up to 6 pages of house ads that they would take away if the story was more than 17 pages, but no more than 23. So this particular issue was 22 pages, which would mean that the original story was intended to be 25, and so 3 pages had to be cut out. I have never heard of what would have been trimmed out to make the issue that was originally intended to be 25 pages to cut that down to the 22 pages we saw within. Presumably, they had to cut out that third page because it tied into the other 2 pages. That's why we got a 22-page story when, in theory, we could have gotten a 23-page story. Getting back to this particular story, page 1. And this was an adequate full-page splash and credits page. Nothing fancy, but it was a good way to open the story. I did like how you could see that it was Flash, Superman, Elongated Man, and Wonder Woman casting their votes just by seeing their forearms. Page 2. There's a lot of discussion on this page about the League's membership bylaws. There was originally a 10-member cap, but that did not count unofficial members like Snapper Carr or the Phantom Stranger. The bylaws were amended to allow the Elongated Man and Red Tornado to join, and then amended again to allow Hawkgirl to join. Page 3. When Zatanna shows up wearing her new costume, the League members are naturally more concerned about her attitude than her clothing. I can see why they decided to, they, meaning DC Comics, decided to change her costume so it didn't just emulate her father's stage costume. But aside from the vampire cape, the new costume was very drab. Page 4. Zatanna has a great line on this page saying, as my costume should indicate, I've set aside my old identity. Zatanna, the innocent magician, is dead. Long live Zatanna, the sorceress. And I'm not even going to try and do a female voice. Page 5. It is surprising that detectives such as Batman and the Elongated Man did not pick up on the fact that Zatanna was not speaking her spells backwards. Page 6. This page was basically a recap of the 5 parts of the extended storyline in the mid-1960s known as Zatanna's Quest. So how that worked was Zatanna would appear in 5 different stories in the mid-1960s. First, she appeared in Hawkman #4, which was her very first appearance. Then she appeared in the aforementioned issue of Green Lantern, where she helped him against the Warlock of Ys. She worked with Batman. She worked with the Elongated Man, both in different issues of Detective Comics. And then in the conclusion to the story, in JLA #51, those 4 heroes teamed up with Zatanna to rescue her missing father. So Zatanna's quest, or Zatanna's search, was concluded. Page 7. There are 3 clues on this page that Green Lantern is fake. First, there's the fact that he entered the satellite as a mist. I mean, usually he would just use his power ring to make him either make him immaterial so he can slip through, or make whatever he was passing through immaterial. Now, we wouldn't want to make the satellite immaterial, because that would allow the vacuum of space to get in, so it'd be easier to make himself immaterial. The second is the fact that he was wielding blue lightning. I mean, obviously, he's got a green power ring. Why would he wield blue lightning? And the third fact, of course, was he attacked one of his so-called teammates, or supposed teammates. Page 8. Personally, I think that the dialogue of the fake Green Lantern on this page is an even better indicator that he's a phony than the clues on the previous page. Page 9. Artist Dick Dillin really knocked the art on this page out of the ballpark. The scene here looks like it could have come from one of Marvel's horror comics, or from the Night on Bald Mountain sequence from Disney's Fantasia. Page 10. Zatanna uses more forward-speaking magic spells, and it is never really explained how that works, since it had previously been established that both she and her father had to speak their magic spells backwards in order for their magic to work. I mean, that's why this issue's story was titled The Reverse Spells of Zatanna's Magic System. Page 11. Zatanna calls the locals trolls, and indeed some of them did look troll-like, but others look more like demons. The creature that shot her through the shoulder definitely didn't look like a troll, though. Page 12. The drawing of the troll on the panel 3 on this page reminds me of the gargoyles from the 1971 telefilm Gargoyles. Page 13. On this page, it is said that Bruce Wayne and Zatanna live in the same neighborhood. I don't know if that had ever been brought up before, and I am surprised that DC never did more with Zatanna after his solo stories ended in 1951. Zatanna actually first appeared in Action Comics #1 in 1938, the very same issue where Superman debuted. So the 2 characters are just as old. So sometimes they say that Superman was the first superhero, but Zatanna certainly predated Batman, predated Crimson Avenger. Of course, Zatanna was basically a knockoff of the comic strip character Mandrake the Magician, and the another comic strip character, the Phantom, also appeared before Superman. The Phantom wore the more or less superhero costume of tights and a mask. However, he didn't have superpowers, but he was certainly as much a superhero as, say, Batman. Now, once they introduced Zatanna, her dad was pretty much related to supporting character status, although he was included with the adult heroes in the Young Justice animated series. Page 14. Batman says that Zatanna's forward-spoken spells were incantations that she had to use in lieu of her backwards magic. Now, normal people can't use incantations as they are just words with no inherent magical effect. So I call bull on that explanation. I mean, I said the incantation at the beginning and you didn't see any magical effect, did you? So there you go. I just proved that there's a magical flaw in this story. So, what do you think of that? Page 15. This story was published in 1978 when Angkor Wat and the rest of the nation of Cambodia were under the control of the genocidal Khmer Rouge. It is highly unlikely that any big superhero brawl would happen in such an authoritarian regime without attracting some government attention. Got nothing for page 16, but on page 17, the land of Yis is not only home to the trolls that attacked Zatanna, it is also home to many warriors from throughout Earth's history. We see what looks like a Persian warrior, a medieval knight, a Puritan soldier, and a Roman centurion, among others. The centurion makes a comment that he recognizes Zatanna, even though her clothes are different. So he must have seen Zatanna when she was previously there with Green Lantern. Now, one of the Persian warriors that came to Zatanna's rescue made a reference to Ahura Mazda. According to Britannica.com, Ahura Mazda was a supreme god in the Zoroastrian religion, and the name given to that religion's creator of the universe. The most famous Zoroastrian on Earth in the last 50 years was Ferruch Bulsara, better known as the British singer Freddie Mercury. Page 18. Zatanna is still wielding forward magic at this point, powerful enough to destroy the castle hiding Green Lantern, which makes me wonder why she would even bother speaking her spells backwards. Page 19. And here it is revealed that the imposter Green Lantern was actually the Warlock of Yis all along. The character had only made the one prior appearance in 1965's Green Lantern number 42. He would not make another appearance until 2003's JSA number 54. His fourth ever appearance was in December 2007's Justice League Unlimited number 40. Now, for a character who so rarely appeared, the Warlock's fifth appearance was just a couple weeks later in 2007's The Brave and the Bold number 9. Now, you may remember that I covered that episode back in episode 9 as part of the J.L. May podcast crossover event. So the character, literally in the 19 episodes of this show I've done so far, I have covered 40% of the appearances of the Warlock of Yis. Now, on page 20, the Warlock monologues his plan, which was pretty sound, all things considered, but neither he nor I knew about Zatanna's forward magic abilities. Nothing for page 21, but page 22, Gerry Conway uses this story to insert a very obscure continuity fix. Now, back in 1966's Justice League of America number 51, Green Lantern referred to the Warlock's land as Dis instead of Yis. On this page, it is explained that the misspeaking was the result of the Warlock's subliminal brainwashing of Green Lantern having an early effect, which is odd since there were no other effects shown between 1966 and 1978. So, all in all, this was a good issue. Definitely, artist Dick Dillin, like I said, he really knocked it out of the park on some of the scenes. He sold the emotions, he sold the creepiness, he sold the action, and it was good that he got a chance to mix things up. In the previous issue of Justice League, he did the time traveling adventures, and he showed his range covering different characters in this issue. One of the great things about having a large cast is you can have a different cast from issue to issue, and it can still be Justice League. I mean, the main Justice League characters in issue 160 were Superman, Hawkman, Flash, and Elongated Man, whereas here we had Batman, Green Arrow, Black Canary, Green Lantern, Atom, Red Tornado, and of course Zatanna. So I definitely like the way he mixed it up. And overall, Gerry Conway was the first Justice League writer I ever followed. I mean, I had read previous Justice League stories, but the first JLA comic I ever bought was number 151, 10 issues before this one, which was also Gerry Conway's first issue. So Conway's style of the Justice League, I mean, I get Gardner Fox created the template for superhero teen stories, both with the Justice Society and the Justice League. But my mindset for Justice League stories is pretty much tied into the way Gerry Conway wrote them. And this certainly was a good issue. I mean, like I said, I don't think they adequately explained the forward magic versus backwards magic. And I think it was silly to, I don't know, I thought it was almost like a waste of space to try and correct, basically it was like one typo from 12 years earlier. But other than that, it was a good story. It held up well, and I really enjoyed it. So, now you may recall that in episode 3, where I covered All-Star Comics number 3, the first appearance of the Justice Society, I had a contest where I was giving away a smoke-stained copy of All-Star Archives Volume 1 to the first viewer who sent me an email with both a reason why they wanted the copy and with their mailing address. Now, a viewer named Amir Steinberg sent me an email asking for the volume, but he did not include his mailing address. I mentioned on a couple of subsequent episodes that I would send him the book if he would just send me his mailing address. I mean, it doesn't have to be his home. He can do a post office box or even general delivery, I suppose. But if you want me to mail something, I need an address. If you want anyone to mail something, they need an address. Since he never replied, and I mentioned it on a couple of shows since then, so I am once again offering this book, Smoke Stained All-Star Comics Archives Volume 1, to the first reader who sends me an email with both their reason for wanting the Smoke Stained volume and with their email address. And Amir, if you're listening, this could still be you, as long as you send me your mailing address. And now it is time for my second giveaway. I have both the original version of this comic, and I have it reprinted in not one, but 2 copies of the Best of DC Digest number 30. So I will send a duplicate copy of which is this one. No, that's my good one. You're not getting the good one. You're getting the free one I got. In fact, I got it as a part of a contest giveaway I mentioned earlier on Digest Cast, so I'm going to pay it forward and give it to you. So what the contest is going to be, as you notice in comic boxes, of course, there's holes in the front for the handles. See, handle holes. And if you peek in through the handle holes, you can see a glimpse of a comic cover. So I am going to display 10 comic boxes with 10 cover glimpses. Your challenge, dear viewer, is to identify the comics contained within those comic box handle glimpses. So, to win the giveaway, just be the first person to send an email to thejusticetrek@gmail.com with your mailing address. I can't stress that enough. You got to send your mailing address if you want something mailed. And the correct answers to the challenge. Now remember, my previous episodes are available for your viewing and listening pleasure. These include episode 17, where I covered a 1960s Brave and the Bold number 29, and episode 18, where I talked about the Enterprise murder mystery from 1980's Star Trek number 6 from Marvel Comics. And please join me for my next episodes. I mentioned before, next one I will do 2022's Star Trek number 1 from IDW, which a great new storyline appears that is truly an homage to all previous incarnations of Trek. Well, except for the Kelvin timeline films. They don't get homage. And in the following episode, number 20, I will cover another 2022 first issue, Justice Society of America. And I will also talk about, in episode 20, 2022's Stargirl, The Lost Children, number 1. Hey, if you like what I'm doing, make sure it shows up on your feed. Make sure others can see it, because the more people that tune in, the longer I'll go. So click like, click subscribe, and hey, keep on Justice Trekking.